That was bad, hang on. That was better. Oh, that was the best one. Third time's a charm, Jed. What's up, guys? Welcome to the next episode of Spill the Beans. Today, I have my COO, Matt Carlin, who is the brains of the operation, right? I might be the brawn of the operation, but he's the one who brings the standard operating procedures, the KPIs, and all the different types of operations to the picture. So you guys are gonna love this. If you get a ton of value, please like, please subscribe, please hit the notifications bell so you guys can get updated on all the new episodes that are coming out of Spill the Beans. Check it out. Carl, what's up, buddy?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me on the show, dude. I appreciate it.
Dude, welcome to Spill the Beans. So you're kind of like behind the scenes, dude. Like a lot of people who are
weird to be in front of a camera.
Who like have come to Commercial Empire, know who you are, who are in our Legacy Boardroom Mastermind, know who you are, but they don't, like a lot of the people on social media don't necessarily know that we're partners, and you're kind of more behind the scenes, you're handling more of the operations and that kind of thing. Like, give me some background, right? Like from the standpoint of how did you get into real estate? How did you, decide that this is something that you wanted to pursue?
Sure. So it was something that I was kind of it wasn't necessarily real estate. I was just looking for something coming out of college, right? So a little bit of background is that I was coming out of college 2009. So not the best job market to be going into, right? So I have a degree in business. Just peppered out job applications and resumes and stuff like that. And not a whole lot was coming back. So last semester of college, I realized I'm gonna need to start looking at other things here, because it wasn't really working out on the job front in terms of, kind of following through on internships and, actually getting a full-time position coming out of college. So a father figure in my life for me was an uncle. Right, so Uncle Mick. Growing up, he would kind of hand me like different books, like a personal development book. You're like, cool, thanks, man, and you kind of push that off to the side. But I think at different times in life.
And he was an entrepreneur?
So he's in sales.
Okay.
So he was always kind of, business. You got to get in sales, you got to do this, you got to make stuff happen, right? He was a guy like, don't wait for things to fall in your lap, like go make it happen, So.
It's a good life lesson.
For sure, man. So I think, again, at different times in your life, things have different meanings. So I picked up a lot of those books a little bit later in life, and I think you can learn different things at different times.
For sure.
By just your own personal experience, right? So one of the books that was kind of like the big eye-opener for me was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? No secret. Everyone's kind of read that book. And it was geared mainly toward real estate. So I started looking at ways of, how can I do something in real estate?
Is this after college?
In college. So kind of last semester type thing. Because I realized, you have 6 months when you graduate, and now student loans are due. So again, let's make something happen instead of waiting for something to happen. So trying to figure out what can I do in real estate, right? Don't have any money at that point. There's got to be something we can do here, and that's really kind of how I stumbled into some wholesaling. So I started doing some wholesaling in the inner city Cleveland area. So places we would never invest today. But we have in the past, I'll be very clear.
We made some great returns, we made some bad returns in those areas.
On paper, they look phenomenal.
Yeah.
So started doing that. Just wanted to kind of network as much as possible. So went to all the REIA events, meetup groups, whatever I could get into. I wanted to get out there and, shake hands and exchange business cards. So that was always the game plan, and then we bumped into each other, So obviously we're from the same area, went to the same schools, a couple of years apart, but we always kind of knew of each other, but we didn't really know each other very well. But we just kind of connected and started doing some deals together, and then realized I think our personalities kind of complement each other a little bit. To touch on what you hit on earlier, you're the guy in front of the camera. That's your best and highest use. Where I'm kind of the guy that wants to go, break it down step by step. How do we make this actually happen? So I think we kind of realized it back then, and we just started doing deals, man, and it steamrolled from there.
Yeah, for sure, man. Do you remember our first deal?
I want to say there was a duplex in Euclid or something like that. We had one of our first ones, man.
I think there was a duplex in Euclid. I feel like there was something in Lakewood that we did also, or at least
there was a lot.
Yeah, but we co-wholesaled for, I don't know, a while before we actually came on full time and left, the retail business, the space that you were in. Let's talk about that real quick. Like I've mentioned this before whenever people ask me, like, dude, how do I find a Matt Carlin, right? Who really is good at the operational side of things. And I've looked at it before. Like, I think some of the best operational people are like assistant managers in the retail industry. You were working at essentially like a movie theater, and you were number 2 at the movie theater for the most part, right? Like, you're an assistant manager, but all the work fell on you. Like, you created all the schedules, you handled all the HR side of things, you handled payroll, like you did all that stuff. And the manager worked a fraction of the amount of time that you did, but made all the money. You did all the work, made a fraction of the money, and you can't really move up, right? Unless that person dies or gets fired.
Right.
So
Traditionally,
yeah. You're either giving them some cigarettes every couple hours. I'll go have a smoke, or the office politics start playing in. So no, I think that's a great place. What are your thoughts on that? To go and find somebody who you're looking for on the operations side of things.
Yeah, I think for sure that doesn't hurt, right? Because like you mentioned, there is that ceiling. So at some point, the person's going to be looking to make moves.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it comes down to the person as well, because you can find a lot of bad people in that as well.
For sure.
I think it's just kind of recognizing.
We're more transactional, coming in and out.
Or like, hey, I'm here for a paycheck or something, right? Same thing we do when we go check out properties. We'll kind of interview the staff without sitting down and talking. Mm-hmm. It's just seeing who takes that ownership mentality. And I think if you can find that person, that could be a great spot to do so, because they are limited, right? So I think that's a really good avenue for exploring.
I like the idea of finding somebody who has experience, at least you can teach all the technical elements of real estate.
Absolutely.
But having experience in business and having experience in management and having experience in operations. I think about some of the world-class like management trainings and sales trainings, and a lot of the Fortune 500 companies, you can find somebody who's a year, 2 years out of school, gets trained by one of those big companies, but they have a ceiling and a cap on their opportunities, and you can go and talk to them about coming into your organization and having limitless potential, right? And I think that's definitely a place. Like I think about, from a customer service standpoint, the first place that comes to mind is Chick-fil-A, right?
Oh, like, for sure.
All these young kids running an efficient operation, super engaging and super just accommodating all the time. And I'm thinking, like, if I ever needed somebody to fill that kind of a role, I would go and recruit from Chick-fil-A, or like a management role. Like I think of, I had a bunch of friends and who worked for Enterprise, right?
Yeah,
it's like. And then I interned for one of the biggest home builders in the country and learned amazing things about the sales process and in real estate. And going and finding somebody who's either interned or worked for one of those corporations. You worked for a large movie theater outfit that you got timelines and deadlines and budgets and marketing and all these different things, and a lot of staff and a lot of moving parts that you got to meet. And I think finding somebody who's been trained on somebody else's dime, and then you bring them into your organization, so that way they're not learning on your time and on your money. They can come in and you can offer way more opportunity than what they otherwise have. So no, I think that's a cool thing. What about all right? So then we started co-wholesaling. You came in-house late 2015, right? September.
We were doing that for a while. We probably started doing it like 2010.
Yeah. We probably did some of our first deals. Well, definitely when I came back in late 2012, we started looking at doing some stuff.
Sure.
And probably 2013, 2014, definitely 2014, I know. Then we did some heavy wholesaling. We did a lot of turnkey. We started a management company in 2016. Got into some smaller multifamily stuff. Got into some wholesaling of multifamily stuff. Got into bigger multifamily stuff.
Vacation rentals.
Vacation rentals, everything, right? So like, of all the different asset classes and all the different things that we've done, I don't know, what's been your thought process on the growth and the transition that we've made over the past 6 years? Do you like the direction we're going in? Are there things that you wish we could have done earlier? What are some things that, if somebody's, like, what were some learning things that you're like, shit, I wish I would have known that in 2015 or 2016?
Pretty much everything, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like
that's a good point.
The trajectory we had to go on, regardless of whether it was painful at the time, it's super important for where we are today. right? And it definitely helped guide us to where we are today. So one of the things I always joke around about is we created that property management company because we were selling turnkey and we needed a good solution. Otherwise, people don't keep buying, right?
And there were no solutions. Yeah, they're like, I can't buy. I mean, that's how we got into the construction.
Clients came to us, yes.
They said, hey, we'll buy properties, but we don't have anybody to renovate them. So then all of a sudden we started selling, with the renovations being done, or we'd renovate them at post, and then they'd be like, I can't keep buying if we don't have property management. And dude, it was out of necessity. We couldn't find anybody who could actively and appropriately manage these properties.
Yeah, so I mean, we had our basic system, bless you, in place for our assets at the time. But then we brought on 100 single family homes in Northeast Ohio that are scattered in all these different areas and cities. And then we grew that to 500.
Yeah.
Right, over the course of what, 2-3 years, something
north
like that.
Of that, man. I think we were at 600-700 at one point.
So
we got rid of the problem ones pretty quickly, but still.
So a lot of headaches. At the time, I don't think I necessarily appreciated it because you're in it, you know?
It was horrible.
So that was me 100 hours a week, right? Having done it, I'm really glad it happened because we can really perform quickly on our apartments now, right? The people and processes we have in place, I feel are top notch, right? I don't really know a whole lot what everyone else is doing in the industry, but I really like what we do. And I know that experience definitely helped guide us to where we are and really knock out these refis, you know?
I can assure you that people don't have the processes and the SOPs and things in place like we do. It is so organized and so dialed. To your, attributing that 100% to you because you're the ones who put that all together. But yeah, man, it was, I think a lot of people, they sit back and they're thinking, I wish I would have done this differently. Like hindsight's 20/20, right? We all there's definitely things that, as you're going through business, you're like, shit, I wish I wouldn't have done that. But if you don't make that mistake, you don't learn from that mistake, right? Like there's some mistakes you just have to make. And hey, it's not really about buying the Mercedes or this or that. You're like, yeah, I want to test that out myself though, right? Like let me figure out that it's not that important and that the journey's more fun than the actual material things. And dude, I went down that road, right? And then I realized, oh shit, my mentors were right, and I should have just listened to them from the get-go and not, wasted a bunch of money on these frivolous expenses that had no real meaning to me or my life. But dude, I think you've got to go down that road. And dude, if I didn't go broke in 2012, then I wouldn't be the better steward of capital that I am today, right? I wouldn't respect money as much as I do today, and what money can do for you, and how it can put you in a pretty tight spot too. So. I 100% agree, man, that you cannot say, I wish I would have done this, because everything was, a dot in an impressionist painting that got us to the full image that we're at right now. You know what I mean?
Dude, and then to speak to that point, where you are and what you're doing today, it makes you a better teacher, right? So, you can read about something in a book and hey, teach someone that, but you've got skin in the game every single day. You're going to know it inside and out, and you can then tell someone else, don't buy that Mercedes, and here's why, right? Maybe you could save them, but I agree, you do still kind of have to make your own mistakes along the way.
Yeah, dude, I know people who've gone to Ivy League schools, went straight into the hedge fund, and just managed the money side of things. Dude, they don't know anything about operations, though, right? And they can't relate to somebody who's trying to scale their real estate investment company and go from doing something transactional into doing something that's long-term wealth building. And I think it makes us more relatable, or makes us connect better, because we can, dude, I've been there. I know exactly what you're going through. I remember it vividly. It's burned into my head because of the headaches and the garbage and nonsense and the feelings. And I think a little bit of it kind of dissipates limitedly. But dude, if you can feel the stress still today that we went through in 2016, and you know what I mean?
But it's cool because, like you said, man, now, especially during boardroom and stuff, right? People can be like, hey, I've got this great idea and I want to do this, and it sounds great, but this decision here also has an effect over here.
Yeah, dude, in theory, everything makes a lot of sense. What have you seen from a standpoint of me going out and being the ready, fire, aim, you being the ready, aim, fire, right? Me going out, creating chaos, you then creating order. What has been... how have you learned to manage that, right? I think it's something that you kind of work with, and you're like, oh shit, Bratz is buying a friggin' island. Here we go, right? Bratz is he wants to buy the mountain house. There we go.
Done.
Oh, he's I'm buying these apartment buildings. I don't know anything about, like, how have you managed that? For any COOs that are watching this and like, how do you actively, I don't know, just work with and engage with the other members of the team that are a little bit more jumpy and leap before you look kind of a thing?
Sure. Well, I think that's one of the reasons why we have a lot of success, because again, the complementary personalities.
For sure.
Right? So anytime we need funding in the business or anytime we need a deal, like, I know that side's taken care of. I don't have to worry about it. And sometimes we have too many to worry about, right? So I know on my end, I've got to take care of, once that happens, once a deal's located, right? Not necessarily closed, but once one's kind of thrown into our funnel, how do we efficiently get that through to its end goal as quickly as possible?
Yep.
So for me, it's understanding, hey, maybe it's a new asset class, maybe it's the same asset class. What's our goal for this project, right? So I can kind of reverse engineer a plan in place. So if I know where we want to take it, then we can kind of begin to build the steps of, here's what we need to do to get it there.
Yep.
And then it's just kind of getting the team on board, right? So there's going to be different people we have in place that do different things. And just making sure that, again, they have a very clear picture of where we're going. Just try to build in the system and process for everything, right?
It's a roadmap, dude. You're figuring out what's the destination, where are we starting, what are the turns and the, how do we traverse the different turns and roads and all that good kind of stuff. So it's like, no, it's good. It's good. I think you're doing a phenomenal job at it. And I was telling Burton when we were just sitting over here, like, there's no chance I'd be doing operations if you were not quarterbacking.
I heard that a couple
this whole
times,
thing.
right?
Yeah, for sure. What do you think is the highest and best use of your time
It's tough to say, man.
as the COO of the company?
It's constantly evolving, right? So I remember a big mindset shift for me. I know you were talking to Mark Evans yesterday. Being part of the DM family, he also had some like COO events with Peter Ricard back in the day. And I think one of the first ones I went to was like in 2016 or 2017. And at the time, again, we were doing a lot of like what now seems small scale, but back then it was probably full capacity for us.
Yeah, for sure.
By no means do I want it to sound like that was like a side thing, but again, we weren't like fully scaled up. And I think going to that event, and there were a couple of them that Peter led, really kind of opened my eyes. Like, okay, like it's on me to make this stuff happen, right? It's not like I don't want to be just a passive person in the industry. So that was kind of a big mindset shift for me in doing that. And I remember vividly, like the fourth or fifth event that I went to, someone came to the COO event and they were the COO of an organization that was just starting out. And one of their questions was like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And I remember that just because like, I don't feel like there's a really good answer.
Yeah.
Right?
It's everything.
Just from an operations side.
Yeah.
The overall goal is to get the project from A to Z as quickly as possible. And then anything that comes up, we have to figure out a way to either handle it or put someone or something in place to handle it. So that's the best way that I can answer that. I know it's not a great concrete answer.
Well, it's making sure that everything's running smoothly, right? And so whenever there's a new operating procedure, documenting, I think, a lot of those operating procedures, and then just facilitating the team and ensuring that they're following those, staying in line, measuring their performance, managing their performance. And I think that just kind of, that's a big deal. I'd love to see you not managing anybody. Like we've talked about this. You as somebody who does take on ownership mentality, what's it been like to let go of control in certain capacities?
It's hard, man, for sure. Because I mean, ultimately, I look at it. And I might be the only one in the organization. I think we all take that ownership approach. But I look at it like, hey, this project or this component or this aspect or this entire operation succeeds or fails based upon my efforts, right? Because at the end of the day, I feel like the buck still stops with me. So it can be difficult, but I think it just kind of goes back to finding the right people, training, and then just consistent follow-up and measuring of progress. So it's definitely possible, but it's not always the most easy thing in the world.
So let's hit on all those. Let's hit on all three of them. Finding the right people, doing the right training, and then measuring and following up on their performance, right? So the first one is finding the right people. What have you found is the best way to find the best? I think, labor pool is very small right now.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, government's paying people more money to stay at home than actually go to work. A lot of the wages have skyrocketed, so it's hard. Like, dude, I know. I just read something the other day. Like, the city of Sandusky right? Sandusky, Ohio, which is where Cedar Point is located. Cedar Point was having such a hard time finding workers, they jacked up their minimum wage to $15 per hour. But what happened was everybody quit their job in Sandusky, Ohio, and started working for Cedar Point.
Yeah.
They're like, you can't find a restaurant that's open, you can't get a car wash, everything is closed down. Any minimum wage business, or any business that has minimum wage employees, is shut down because all those workers have gone straight to Cedar Point.
Sure.
So it's like, what do you do? Like, how do you go and find labor force in this economy, and how do we find good people?
Well, for us, we lean pretty heavily on Scott Hannes, Fortitude HR Solutions. But I don't know. I don't necessarily always think, and this is to your point earlier, that the best candidates are always the people who are out looking for jobs. So I know.
I agree.
Sometimes the best way to do it is to maybe make connections on LinkedIn, see who's kind of like a mover and shaker in a specific industry, and then not necessarily poach, but kind of advertise, like, hey, we've got this going on,
Yeah, we're opening up, and you're putting the lure in the water. Let them come to you. I think social media is super powerful, dude, where you can just post something and say, hey, looking for an intern, looking for an operations manager. I know, one of the members of our mastermind has got a $15 million a year trucking business. Just posted like, hey, I'm looking for a COO. And somebody who is a COO of a very large organization was like, I'm tired of the corporate nonsense. Sure. I'm tired of the bureaucracy. I need to make a shift. I can't elevate anymore, and they're not going to give me any more money. They're not getting, maybe a little bit of stock options, but it's inconsequential. It's really just golden handcuffs. Like, I want to go someplace where I can make a difference, where I can really be part of some amazing growth, where I can earn some equity and create a legacy for my family. And he was a total A player, and now they're working out a deal just because he posted on social media,
sure,
right? And just put it out there, let people know. They don't know that you're hiring unless you're talking about it.
Same thing about looking for deals, absolutely.
Yeah, same thing with looking for deals, right? And so I think it's one of those things where, just like we're always prospecting for deals, we need to always be prospecting for great people too, and bring them into the organization, because it's a timing thing, right? Just like a private money lender might have a chunk of cash that comes in because they sold a deal, sold a business, launched a product. It's about timing. It's not, they don't always have the money all the time. So you got to catch them at the right time. And I think those right people who had a shitty day at work, and they're tired of their boss, and they're tired of the bureaucracy, and they realize that they got passed over for a promotion, and now they start looking, and they're jaded a little bit with where they currently are because they're not being compensated for what the value is that they're bringing. I think there's things like that that are timing issues, and that's why you always have to be prospecting for great people. The other thing that I'll mention is the time value, or the value of time over the value of money, right? In our business, it's much more important to take an apartment that's sitting vacant, and let's say it's a 100-unit apartment building, and you got 20% vacancy, right? And let's say the units rent for $800 a month. If you're typically running at a 95% occupancy,
sure,
right, and it's only running at 80%, that means there's 15 units at $800 a month. That is $12,000 a month that you're losing out on money, right? And so, you're going to wait 4 months to hire the perfect person, or 6 months to hire the perfect person who's willing to take $25,000 a year? Like, dude, you're losing on $12,000 every single. It'd be better to pay somebody $45,000 a year or $50,000 a year
in month one,
and get the shit done, right? Because it covers itself, it makes up for itself immediately, and it reduces the stress over the overall operation. So, and the other one that we've been talking about a lot is the opportunity cost. Right? Like, what is it for you managing a HUD property, or you managing, sure, or being involved in property management in any capacity at all, and doing, I don't know, $40,000 a year tasks? Guess what, man? That costs us millions of dollars over here in the overall growth of the operation. So I think you got to measure that out. I'd rather pay somebody $60,000 a year to go and manage a $30,000 a year job, just because that $30,000 of additional expense that I'm taking on, I know that it buys you the time to then go and generate $6 million of additional revenue, right? And so, I'm thinking about that. There's a lot of that return on time I've been just kind of obsessing over the past 6 months or so, of like, how do we buy time back for you? So that way we can continuously level up and not just focus on not get caught up in none of us are doing $10 an hour tasks, but we're probably doing $50 to $100 an hour tasks that we shouldn't be doing, right? There's little things like that that pop in. But there's no reason any of us shouldn't be spending time on only $10,000 an hour tasks, And if you're spending, even if I took everything off your plate, you'd refill it with 50, 60 hours of work per week. And Fatty's the same way, and I'm the same way. But like, can you imagine if we're all spending 50 hours a week just on $10,000 an hour tasks?
Sure, that'd be huge.
Dude, it's a game changer, man. Like, think about where the business would be. But like, if you're going to invest 50 grand a year into somebody, they should yield probably 5x that in gross revenue, right? It should be at least $250,000 in gross revenue of what they yield. All right, so that's finding people. And if you're not good at finding people, find somebody who can go out and find people, like Scott Hannes, who has, there's HR companies out there and recruiting companies out there that you can pay them to go and do their job. They're going to typically do it better than we can, and come in and fill any holes in your company.
And it helps them when we have a cool company too, right?
For sure.
Because I think one of the most eye-opening things for us is when we started working with Scott a couple of years ago. He came in and did like an analysis of the company and helped us put our core values and stuff in place, which is huge because you build off of that.
Yep.
He sat down and individually interviewed everyone in the company just to figure out, hey, what's important to this individual? And what we're seeing is over time, the millennial crowd is seeing more value hunting for a job in like the culture of the company than necessarily the salary.
For sure.
So I think we do have a really cool company culture. We do some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
We have kind of a laid back type approach to stuff, as long as
work hard, play hard, I'd say.
Right. But I mean, like, we have fun too, right?
Yeah.
So I think that translates in a lot of the stuff that we put out on social media. So it's not uncommon, I would say, to kind of get good candidates back because we're showing that we're a cool company as well.
We're fun to work with, right? And we're very growth oriented. So we attract like-minded people who want to be in that. If there's somebody who wants the corporate environment, wants to wear a suit and tie every single day and show up and work in a cubicle, that's not our environment. So that person's not going to be attracted to us. And even if they slip through the cracks and we do end up hiring them, they're going to spin themselves out anyways, right? Because they're going to it's going to feel uncomfortable for them to be involved in this type of a relaxed atmosphere. It's relaxed, but it's get your shit done, right? Like, you can wear whatever you want. You can come in later in the day. You can cut your hair into a mullet. Come in later in the day, leave early, whatever you got to do, take care of your own personal stuff, as long as the job gets done, as long as things get done. And they get done not just like check the box, but like get done at the highest level, right?
Absolutely.
Like, we all have this internal fire burning to do more than we even necessarily get paid for, right? Just because we know that it's making an investment in our future.
Absolutely.
Not only for us individually, but as the company as a whole. And if the company's taken care of, all of us are taken care of, So I think that's a really, really key and important part. Let's move on to like the training aspect. Something I'm absolutely horrible at is training people. I'd rather say, hey, you're walking into a shitstorm, figure it out, right? That's my training. But the training is really important, right? So that way they don't feel like they're out on an island and not part of the organization or being given the support. And I think we forget how much we've gone through over the past 10, 12 years that we've been investing in real estate, and all the learning curves. And we just expect this really, really high level right out of the gate, and they haven't gone through all that stuff. So like, what does the typical onboarding and expectation setting look like in the training whenever we bring on somebody new?
So usually like the first week is just knocking out paperwork and then getting to know the team a little bit. So it's just a lot of kind of socializing them in the organization. So hey, here's Marty, spend a day with Marty. Here's Suhei, spend a day with Suhei, stuff like that, depending upon what side of the company they're coming into. So that's usually like the first week, is just to kind of get a feel for who does what, and just kind of maybe go with someone for a couple days and see what they do. And then it's just spending time with them.
Yeah.
So I think one of the coolest things that you preach to a lot of the group is just hire an assistant, right? So I think that's so powerful, because that assistant, someone's just going to be with you, watch how you work, watch how you speak, watch how you answer emails, watch how you respond to messages and when. Yeah. And then inherently they start picking up on those activities, right?
Start speaking like you speak, start talking like you talk, they start thinking like you think, acting like you act. Like, it's just, it's a good way to groom, right? It's like having a kid. You have a kid,
Sure.
they're watching you and they're doing what you do, not doing what you say. And so like by emulating the behavior that you want to see, like that's, I think, one of the most important things that you can do.
Right, so you start off hiring an assistant, right? But over time, that assistant, if they're the right person, without even coming to you, they're gonna promote themselves out of that role.
Yeah.
They might not be the person in front of the camera, but maybe behind the scenes they make it happen,
Yep.
right? Or vice versa. And then you just hire another assistant, right? And then keep doing that, and then all of a sudden you build the team out.
Yep.
And I think that's a great way because you just kind of inundate them, right? Here's how we do it. Here's, just watch this, ask questions along the way. I'm going to explain this stuff. For me, that's really how it's worked. And then just kind of at some point, like, you're taking this over, right? And that's, I'm here if you need anything. We're going to continually follow up. We're going to have, consistent meetings every morning where we call those huddles. They're generally like half-hour phone calls with a team. We go over kind of goals, talk about what our metrics are, and then if there's any issues or suggestions on how to do things better. So there's consistent follow-up. So it would never be where someone feels like they were just kind of given something and then left.
Yeah.
We don't want, the worst thing is if we do find that A player, they come in and a week later they quit because now they have no support. So that's generally how we try to
think we're not
it.
organized or whatever. Hey, dude, you're going through your learning curves, right?
Sure.
You're going through all the nonsense and all that stuff, and it's do you think? What's interesting is like a lot of people see our team and they'll be like, well, man, you got pretty lucky. You hired, this person who you went to high school with, this other person you went to high school with, this person who interned for you, this other person you went to high school with, this other person who worked with somebody who you went to high school with, this other person you went to college with, right? Like, we have a lot of people who we know and we've known for a long time. What do you think it's like, hiring friends, hiring family, and what's your thought process on that of why people have been with us and why they're still with us?
Sure. So I think as a general rule, it's probably not advisable to necessarily just do that and lean on it. But I think the reason it all kind of came together is because the people who joined the organization, right? It was people who proved themselves time and time again, and it was more of like on a for lack of a better term, like contract type basis. There wasn't a team to begin with.
We're testing it out, and we're doing a deal by deal type basis.
So there was no team to begin with, but after everyone saw everyone's work ethic and what their specialty was and realized, hey, this is kind of working out, then it became the team. So I don't necessarily think we lucked out. I think we picked really good people that we knew were good people and that could be trained in the specific area or maybe had an area of expertise already, and it just kind of gelled. So it wasn't just like, hey, we're all friends, let's go start a business.
Yeah, not at all.
Means. So I don't want. Hopefully,
I think that's
a
a horrible idea. First of all, like I like the idea of doing it on a deal by deal basis and testing the waters before you ever get married. And then the other thing is like, we weren't necessarily like best buddies, right? And neither was or with Fatty. And so it was like we knew each other. We did a lot of single deals together before we decided to like come in-house, and then it was still several years later before, there was like profit share and that kind of stuff, but like until like there was a vesting into equity at the same time. So, you run before you walk, or you walk before you run, kind of a thing, and you crawl before you walk. And so, I think that's important. I think setting expectations is very important. Sure. I think understanding.
Yeah, how are you being measured, right? So someone has to know what's expected out of their role. And then by no means do we say like, hey, this is the minimum expected out of a role. We always shoot on the high side. Yeah. Right? So here's 100% what you need to do in your role, knowing that maybe 100% can't be attained, but if someone gets to 95 instead of if we told them the goal was 80, there's 15% upside there.
I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot. And I think what else is important is just sitting down with the team on a quarterly, maybe not quarterly, but definitely twice a year, at least once a year. Sure. And just, dude, are you happy? What do you like? What would you change? What would you improve? How can we improve? And, what I just don't want is to ever be like blindsided, right? Like, if anybody ever wanted to leave or just wasn't a fit any longer, I just want them to be like, hey, dude, like, here's what I'm going through. Let's talk through it. I was talking with Drew the other day, and one of his like A players, one of the best people on his team, was like, I want to work from home, and I know you're not going to allow it, so I'm just going to, here's my 2 weeks resignation.
Made the assumption?
Yeah, she just made the assumption. Like, he's never going to allow it, so I'm just going to, and she's bawling her eyes out, and he's like, what? Well, dude, you never even came to me with this, right? Like, Let's work through it. Let's figure it out. Let's talk through it. No, I want to keep you. And so it's just, I think people come up with these assumptions in their head, and these stories in their head, and then they just like hang on to it. They never even have the conversation. I think it's so important to have those, provoke those conversations, the difficult conversations of like creating that environment that says, hey, look, we're open. We're going to talk about this. Tell me if you're happy. Tell me what you're not happy. Tell me what we can do better. How can we improve? How, like all this stuff. And, like what are your goals? What are your personal goals? What are your business goals? What are your work goals, right? Like I think a lot of those things of just having the open dialogue clears the air and doesn't have any, pent up, who knows, that explosion that could happen down the road. And it's a lot easier to write the course a little bit at a time than veering off and then having to come all the way back. You know what I mean?
And the same is true of a performance side too. So from the employer end, making sure like if a behavior or the job's not being done ideally the way it's supposed to be, having those smaller discussions up front and explaining why it's important to do something a specific way helps.
Yeah, totally, man. And that's a good segue into like, KPIs, right? Key performance indicators, the metrics that allow you to measure performance. Because if you don't measure performance, you cannot manage performance.
Very true.
So like how do you set those KPIs? What are you looking at in each different role? And are there 5, 15, 2 KPIs, 1 KPI? Like what does it look like whenever you structure a person and you're measuring their performance?
So ideally, there's not going to be a ton, right? Because you don't want to overload someone with 20 KPIs that they're responsible for, because now everything's going to get 5% attention versus maybe 2 they get all the attention, right? So we try to boil someone's role down to what are the most important functions that they can be doing, right? So let's say someone's in like a leasing capacity. So for us, we really want to focus on, and we take a look at a variety of metrics, but we try to again simplify that. We want to take a look at
there's a lot of things a leasing agent could be doing, right?
For sure, man.
And there's a lot of things that they need to be doing, but like what is the most important, right? Like that's what I'm always thinking of. What one KPI, what one activity is the domino that knocks it down and knocks down all the other dominoes, right? Makes everybody's the rest of their job easier and everybody else's life easier as well. Like what is the one thing that has to be measured that creates the biggest impact in that role?
So let's go back to leasing as an example. We could say, the leasing is to have marketing up in a specific time frame, or talk to a certain number of leads, or follow up with applicants within 24 hours, or whatever that may be. And that's a lot of individual goals that people might be focused on. Or I can say your goal is to have an average placement time of 10 days or less. And if they do that and they focus on that, they're going to hit all those other things because they know I need to get 10 days or less. So I got to call people back. I got to follow up with applications. So those aren't even goals they need to have as long as they focus on the big overall goal.
Are you measuring more activities, or are you measuring more the goal, right? Like I think, closing on, let's talk about Nick, acquisitions. Closing on or leasing a unit is the goal, and leasing it in 10 days is the goal, and it's quantifiable, which I love. Dude, there's a lot of moving parts that lead up to
for sure
leasing that unit, right? Like, are you measuring that and then they know what leads up to that? Or is there a goal and then there's like a couple activities, or like how do you typically set that up?
So, the goal is overall, how well is the job going, right? So that's how we tell on a very high level. I can hear one number and know things are going really well or things aren't, right? So that's
and you think for a leasing agent, for instance, it would be like leasing within 10 days?
Sure.
Or is it occupancy, or is it?
Well, that's going to be different
more
aspects,
management, right?
So again, for just leasing in that instance, that number is going to tell me whether we're doing well or not, and then maybe I don't even have to dive deeper into it.
Right, and then if that goal is not hitting the bar, then you dive into the activity that leads to that goal.
So we really dive deep into what the SOP, or standard operating procedure, for the role is. So everything's already mapped out for everyone. So from leasing, here's how we structure an open house. Here's how we structure an application. It's all spelled out step by step, and we dive into those and review the activities that we can control that ultimately affect the goal.
Yep.
So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, totally, man. No, it's important. What happens if somebody's hitting the goal? Do you increase the goal? Do you try to stretch them more, or what does that look like?
So it's constantly evolving, right? So we've joked around before in the past, like sometimes I wish I had my 2016 problems that at the time seemed like the biggest thing in the world, but today we'd solve in 2 minutes. So I think as we grow and evolve, the goals have to as well. So, maybe we start out with a 15-day goal or something, and then over time it becomes a 10-day goal. And then, ideally, we have 0 downtime. But if we can have these really, really big goals, then we can strive to actually achieve those. So we're constantly trying to evolve those over time.
Yeah. I think the whole Michelangelo thing of I'd rather aim high and miss than aim low and hit is definitely something that's ingrained in our company culture, right?
For sure.
I think there's a lot of times that people see a big goal and they think, and there's studies on this, that if they see a big goal and it's outside of 30 to 50% of what they've ever achieved before, it actually demotivates them instead of motivates them. I think we've been able to consistently set a high bar and instill confidence in the team to a point where like it doesn't demotivate. It's like really a stretch, but it's also it's also attainable where we're not disappointed all the time, or we'll at least have a conversation and be like, dude, we missed the goal of 10,000 doors by end of 2022, but guess what? We hit it by end of 2023 or middle of 2023.
Right. What do we make profitability?
Pretty damn good.
Right?
Like we're freaking crushing, right? And so, especially despite COVID and all this other stuff that's going on. So like I know there's a lot of that happening, and just having the open dialogue with the team of saying, hey, it was a very ambitious goal and we battled through and we still made this much happen, So
and no one thinks in the back of their mind, and that's what's so cool about the team, the people we have. No one thinks that like it's okay to come in at 9,000 instead of 10. Everyone's like, no, we're gonna get 10.
Yeah.
Like that's a challenge. We're gonna get 10, and I'm gonna make it look easy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everyone's like, let's do this.
Yeah.
So I love that about the team.
We have a really, really good culture from that standpoint. We're all on the same page of like, if they can do it, why not me,
Sure.
right? Or like, if anybody's going to do it, why not me? Like, who's to say that a bunch of kids from Parma or outside of blue collar Cleveland, Ohio, can't do this? Like, nobody to say that. So
we have the idea that everything wasn't possible until somebody did it.
Yeah.
So watch us, right?
So how about the employees who are not hitting their KPIs? So that's when you dive deeper into the activities. Mm-hmm. How long do you let that string along? Of non-performance between, like, is it strike 1, strike 2, strike 3, 90 days? I've heard some of my buddies just like, hey, let me just give you $5,000 and to walk away, or $2,500 or whatever, depending on what the level of job is, and it's almost like a test, right? Hey, you're not hitting your KPIs. Here's $5,000.
Okay.
Let me just let you go, and
see if they take it.
See if hey, it's up to you. I either need the KPIs to hit this, or you take your $5,000 and we'll just part ways right now, and I'll bring in somebody new for the role, and it's a way of just clearing the air again, and it allows you to have that conversation of, if this is not for you, I get it. Here's a parting gift. I appreciate all your hard work from, what you've done so far. If that is for you, this is the expectation. Sure. This is where we need to be.
And it's cool because in that situation, I haven't personally.
And you're going to find people who either rise to the occasion or not.
Their answer is going to tell you whether they're on board or not.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But for me, dude, it's a little bit harder sometimes when that person's on your direct team versus maybe it's like a third-party relationship or something you have. For me, I'm a lot more stern in that sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you can be very clear, try to follow up a couple times, make sure that everyone's 100% clear on the goal and like on the activities and stuff.
Another landscaping company or exterminating company. Like that stuff's easy. Yeah.
Contractors and stuff.
Yeah, contractors.
So I feel like I kind of have a little bit of a short fuse in that sense.
Yeah.
Where it's, okay, cool, let's pivot. We're gonna go over here and do something different, right? Someone on your team you kind of feel invested for, and sometimes you almost want something more than the team member does in a sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Which can be frustrating. But I don't know, man. I don't think there's a perfect answer. Ideally, it would be, hey, strike 1, 2, and 3 just to
you're quantifying the performance. You're seeing it not perform. Gave an opportunity to correct it. Gave him another opportunity to correct it. And I know that's what Hannes would say is document it all. Strike 1, 2, 3, and then you go your separate ways, kind of thing. So
it's big on like PIP plans or performance improvement plans, PIP. So when we have had issues in the past, we've sat down with people and run through expectations, run through the high level KPIs or SMART goals that we set for people on an annual basis, And really kind of, in my mind, I always want to try to peel back layers of the onion a little bit, because maybe someone thinks like, hey, I just have this task and it's to go make someone else money, but like they don't realize that that task is going to have a ripple effect, right? So I always try to explain that, because I think a lot of times people assume that everyone knows, but they probably don't, right? Because maybe if they don't see that side of the organization or business, they're just thinking like, hey, I'm punching the time clock and I'm doing this so someone else can make money, right?
Yep.
So I think it's important to have that discussion, and when we've done that in the past, it's actually kind of cool. We have seen numbers really rise to where we needed them to be, and then people actually really pay attention to that stuff and care, because they see how it affects everyone else or how it makes their life easier by paying attention to those numbers.
Yep.
So I think that's definitely helped us before in the past.
What do you think about the idea of hire slow, fire fast? Or do you like hire fast, fire fast?
Right. I'm like, sometimes you got to fill a spot. Right?
I feel like most people, most entrepreneurs will hire fast, fire slow.
Sure.
And I know we've been guilty of that.
Ideally, you're not in a position where you have to hire super fast. But again, we go through Scott a lot. He does a lot of the screening and stuff for us.
Well, I think more entry-level positions, we have a lot of that's very urgent, right? And I think we're very methodical in some of the higher level, not higher, I wouldn't say I don't know, whatever.
I'd say hiring
an attorney, right?
Right, okay. I'd say we're kind of somewhere in the middle, right? We're not super fast because we want to make sure we're doing our due diligence, but we don't take forever to do anything.
But we're very growth-oriented, and where we need like, let's roll, let's move forward. That's worked out sometimes really well, and other times as not. The hardest part for me is having somebody on the team, and I want it more for them than they want it for themselves, or I see them gaming this system, right? Because they're not 100%. They might have some lip service, but then all of a sudden they're not showing up, and I don't know.
I think that definitely answers the question as to whether or not that's the correct person for the organization.
Yeah, for sure.
So that makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. No, for sure. Well, what about hiring staff that's in the office versus hiring staff that's remote versus hiring virtual assistants? What are your thoughts on those three?
So I don't have a ton of experience with virtual assistants. So
far, Burton really is the only one in our team who uses VAs.
So far, we really only have one that we work with on a consistent basis, the education company.
And she's in the United States.
Exactly. I think it's like one state over.
Yeah.
So in a sense, that's more of kind of a remote worker than it would be a virtual assistant.
Just like I'm remote, right? Like Burton's remote. Sarah, who runs the education, is remote. Like we're all kind of remote. So let's call it that. Let's call it in the office, remote workers, VAs. VA I see as Philippines, $6 to $10 an hour.
We kind of have our business structured, Legacy Wealth Holdings, two different buckets, right? The operations, where we actually run the operations, or the apartments, I should say, and then the education company. For the most part, the education company is primarily virtual because everyone's all over. But there really shouldn't be much issue as long as everyone, again, knows the goals they need to be hitting. We review that on a consistent basis. And then everyone understands why some roles can be virtual and why some might have to be more in office. So as long as that's kind of transparent, we don't really run into any issues.
Yeah. I mean, the education we got a really, really good team on that.
Yeah, and again, it comes down to the people as well. Just because you don't necessarily see someone in the office doesn't mean they're not at a project doing something, right? Hopefully it wouldn't be a case where someone is like, I'm here doing this, and they're really at home or something.
Yep.
But I mean, ultimately, those numbers are going to reflect whether or not things got done or not. We catch those very, very quickly.
For sure. And I think, all right, so in person, we're finding out not necessary if you have the right people.
Maybe not 100% necessary, but it's good to have office face-to-face time.
Agreed. Yeah.
I 100% think that's important because
the camaraderie and you hanging out and just accountability.
Again, when someone goes down or like Scott's sick or something, like on a team, having that face-to-face relationship, knowing someone on deeper levels, like, hey, how can I go out of my way to help? Or like, how can I help pick up some slack over here or something like that. So I think that's super important to maybe not 100% always be in the office, but having office dedicated time as well. And then sometimes it's nice to, again, have that dedicated office where it's not like, I got to do the lawn, I got to do the dishes, get out of that, right? Let's just focus on work.
Yeah, I think we're a little bit old school in not utilizing VAs as much as we should. I feel like...
personally, I have zero experience with it. And I don't necessarily, I'm kind of that like old man mindset where it's, I don't even have social media. You know? Where it's like, hey, I'd rather do it myself or maybe work with someone here or close or something. It doesn't mean that's the right mentality. It's just kind of how
right.
It,
Yeah. And I think it's just one of those things you kind of work through, and as you find needs for it, and, you can go down that road. But there's companies that, just like Scott, can hire in-person type of employees or even remote employees. There's companies that handle and can hire just VAs for you and source and train and do all those kinds of things. I know a
lot of people have a lot of success with it.
Yeah.
So there's something to it.
Yeah, there's some people who swear by it. I might look into that, dude. I just feel like I need a VA just for, I don't know, doing this, probably screening emails and all that stuff.
That's the biggest sinkhole there, man.
Let's talk about time. Let's talk about time management and stuff, right? Like that's something that we're always battling.
Yeah.
Emails, right? Like you're somebody who runs their business by what's in the inbox, right? Like zero inbox is kind of the idea.
Ideally, no, right? But
ideally you wouldn't, right?
Everything comes via email. So whether I'm either copied on something or it's directed to me, like emails just never stop.
Give me like a handful of strategies and things that you've implemented from a time management to buy back more time. Give me some of like the biggest ones that have made such a large impact on your schedule over the course of the past 12 to 24 months.
So big disclaimer on the front end, I feel like I'm definitely not an expert to talk about great time management stuff, just because I feel like I'm kind of always bogged down.
But you're always, that's because we fill our plates, right? Like there's limitless amount of content that I can put out on social media. So even if I clear my plate of everything else, I'm still going to feel like I'm bogged down or not bogged down, but you know what I mean? Like there's always stuff to do, right? How do you eliminate those 10, 100, $1,000 an hour tasks? That way, at least as you're busy, as you're productive, as you're working, and as your schedule is still filled, it's at least filled with a higher level tasks.
Yeah, so something that I've kind of been implementing over the past 6 months or so, and it's kind of been a big shift for me, is waking up a little bit earlier and then not turning on the phone or computer right away, right? Yeah. So it's there, but I'm going to use it for music and go to the gym or something in the morning. So I'll
work on you first.
Right. So I'll go, maybe wake up really early, right? Let's call it, 4:30, 5 o'clock. Wake up, go to the gym, get a workout in. So you're done at the gym 6:30. People are still sleeping.
You already got a win for the day, man. Yeah.
So you come home, maybe start diving into stuff there. And the cool thing for me is, let's say that day starts at that time. So you're diving into your messages and stuff, 6:30, 7 a.m. in the morning. I'm kind of going to go through things, and what I do is triage my emails, right? So it's kind of like a color coding system with the stars in Gmail, where it's, hey, these are the things, if I don't get to them sooner than later, it's going to cause a really big problem for someone or something in the organization. So that's my tier 1 that I'll take a look at. And then I'll kind of go through and just say, what would be next? What would be next? What would be next? And then I also, toward the end of the workday, I'll put together hey, here's the top 3 things that I need to get done for tomorrow.
Yep.
Right? So I'm also taking a look at that from the previous day.
Yep.
There's a huge difference between urgent tasks and important tasks.
For sure.
Right?
Yep.
So that's the one thing I always try to talk about with the team, and we talk about on our huddles and weekly calls as well. It's really easy to get caught up in the fires and small minutia, for lack of a better term, right? So, if someone's having a fight with a tenant because the tenant's behavior is unruly or something, they can spend a day on that because they're upset. But what did we really get done, right? So it might be important to correct that behavior, but at the end of the day, it's not worth spending a full day on, right? It's not worth spending 5 minutes on. So always try to set 3 important things that even if it's a big project, if I spend an hour on it, that's a win, right? So what are 3 things that are important and not necessarily urgent, but will really move the needle forward in the business that I need to work on that day? And that could be from 6:30 to 8, right? Knock that stuff out, and then maybe dive into the emails and start doing the triage.
Yep.
But I've realized once 8 o'clock rolls around, it's no longer my day, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So then that'll kind of happen.
Well, it sounds like there's a few things I want to kind of just bullet point and unpack real quick. So from a high level, it's you got to knock out, take care of you first, right? And the best way to do that is by waking up before everybody else wakes up and taking care of you. So waking up, getting a workout in, meditate, read a book, get some personal development in, work on yourself, because if you're not taking care of yourself, dude, nothing else is going to get taken care of, right? Another thing is focusing on the important activities, not just the urgent activities, and being aware of what's important versus what's urgent. And I think you do that in two ways, by screening the emails and looking at the important things, and then also the planning part. Like, that's one of the things that I do too, is like, what's the most important thing that I can do tomorrow? Sure. That if I only do one thing, this is the most important thing. I would say, hey, I had an accomplished day because I did this one thing, right? And I think not putting 10 things on there, not putting 5 things on there, not putting 7, not putting even 3, it's usually one thing that I'm like, if this one thing is done, I feel good about it.
It's a win.
So yeah, so that's a win. And then the other thing is doing the biggest pain in the ass and doing it first, right? Like eating that frog early.
Keep putting it off or get it done, right?
And just knocking it out, right? And doing that first in the day is super, super critical for me. The other thing that I do is like I time block. So I'll try not to keep my email open, but I get sucked into that once in a while.
It's huge, though, man. That's super.
And I just let it compile, and then I'll go and just attack it hard for like an hour or two, and knock it out. Because if you just sit there and you just wait for other people to send emails, dude, it'll eat up your entire day.
Because you're constantly mentally shifting from one thing to another.
And then the other thing is, like, how many times have you seen me reply to people's emails that they just have me CC'd on it? I'm like, I don't need to be on this. If you don't need a direct response from me, I don't need to be on there. Like, there's enough A players in our organization where you give to somebody, the shit's gonna get done, right? If you need somebody to take care of it, and you need things specifically from Carlin should be on there, right? If you don't need anything from Carlin, take him off that email, right? And I'm saying it about me, I'm saying it about you, Fatty, everybody in the organization. Like, hey guys, I don't need to be here. You say, hey, please only CC me if you guys need a direct response from me.
But that way,
I'm trying to limit my inbox, from all the emails and clutter. And I think, by saying it in a respectful manner, people, okay, yeah, I appreciate that. And it also makes them aware, like, hey.
So it doesn't continue to happen.
And hopefully you do it one time and they don't do it right. And I'm very intentional of, like, if somebody makes an introduction, I'll say, hey, thanks, Bill, BCCing you to spare your inbox with a smiley face, right? And then I'll say, hey, Ricky, great to meet you, great to connect with you. Would love to connect with you one-on-one. Shoot me an email. Let's talk or whatever. But what that does is, like, it trains Bill that first of all, they're seeing that I'm respectful in that regard, but it also trains Bill to do the same thing for me, and it trains Ricky to do the same thing for me.
And also shows them both the connection was still made.
Yeah, exactly. So I try to do that.
And that has trickled down.
I think a couple of those things, implementing a few of those. My next is just going to be hiring a full-time person just to, like, handle emails and screen through all the emails.
Never stops, man.
You really need that. You need to, like, somebody just read your emails and disperse them to the right team members.
Sure.
So that way you're removed from that. And then it allows you to focus on those $10,000 an hour activities. So
we were flying to Austin for the Legacy Summit in April. So Hannah and I were sitting together. We were flying, and put my phone in airplane mode as we were about to take off. And I think we went from like Dallas to Austin or something. So it was a very short flight. And he's always joking around, like he wants to compare. Like he was like, "Hey, how many emails do you get?"
Yeah.
So it was like, let's call it an hour, right? Mm-hmm. So turn airplane mode off. I got 217 from the hour, and then he had like 20 or something like that. And so he thought like he was gonna win, you know.
I try to be aware of it, but we need to make sure the team doesn't CC you on stuff unless shit's really hitting the fan and you're really needed. You know what I mean?
They're kind of keeping the loop. But I mean, we go through
that whole keep me in the loop kind of thing is like. You know, if it's really that important, then save the email and put it into like a Google Drive or something. Like, well, we don't need that. But that's good stuff, man. So let's wrap by talking about what would you like to see the next 24 to 36 months look like in our company.
Dude, just find a way where we can actually hit that goal as quickly as possible, right? So the stabilized assets are a lot easier to operate and kind of manage than active projects that we're kind of polishing.
Heavy value adds,
you know?
Yeah.
So I think however we can get to that goal as quickly as possible with 10,000 stabilized units, I want to figure out a way to implement those systems and processes to get it.
Yep.
Constantly refine our systems, hit that goal, and then kind of figure out what the next step would be.
Yeah, man, I agree. This growth and this graduation of, Burton was talking about it, we started out with wholesaling and then flipping and then turnkey and then property management and then small multi and then larger middle-sized multi and then big multi, and then like heavy value add multi. Now we're doing a little bit more moderate, medium value add. Now we're trying to get into more stabilized stuff. And then probably next step from that is starting our own investment fund, and just handling the money. And once we get to $1 billion in property, I think next on my agenda is going to be $1 billion in cash to then deploy into deals and have the investment fund with $1 billion. So I think it's going to be the most scalable thing that we can do. And I think with our rock star following and all of our awesome students and mastermind members and people that I want to make their life as easy as possible to go out and do deals and build wealth. So if we can help them source deals, like having the investment fund in order to fund their deals easily for them and sponsor their loans for them and all those kinds of things, I feel like, and then we can put a lot of the different resources in place to help them manage it properly and economically and do it the right way. So
that's creating a lot of wins for a lot of people.
I think so. So that's kind of that's in my sights. But yeah, dude,
it's already kind of coming down that road.
Yeah, we're close. We're very close. We gotta get through the next 60 days as we continuing to just trim the fat and refine our operation and refine our current holdings. And shoot, by the time this airs, it'll probably be 45 days down the road of from where we are today. So we'll be pretty close to really just lighting it on fire the last few months of the year. So, no, dude, appreciate you. Appreciate your business partnership, your friendship, and it's wild to think of what we've been able to accomplish over the past 5-6 years of working full time together.
It is cool to reflect back on it, but it also gets you excited for the next 5. Right?
I know, man. It's gonna be pretty cool. So exciting stuff, dude.
Thanks
Appreciate you, buddy.
Man.
Awesome. Always a great conversation that I had with Carlin. The dude is an absolute stud, runs every capacity of our operations. And I think it's really important for people to understand that, it's doing real estate or buying apartment buildings is not just the buying part, right? They get all excited and the excitement is on social media because they found the deal and they sourced the money and they closed on it. That's when the work gets started, right? And without a team and guys like Matt Carlin on my team overseeing the entire side of the operations, that's what keeps the deal and continues to generate cash flow and generate wealth long term to build that legacy wealth we all are looking for. So hopefully you got a ton of value out of this. If you did, please share it. Please please subscribe. Please share it with somebody else who's going to get a ton of value, and hit the notifications bell so you can get updated on the next episode of Spill the Beans. It's coming out next Sunday.